Hello, everyone, and good day. There we have it. We're going to have a review session for the teaching and assessment of grammar. So, for this portion, we are just getting to have a brief review, okay, with the important aspects as to how should we teach grammar. You already take it last semester, so I'm hoping that you tend to remember some of the facts. So here we have to first identify what is grammar. So grammar is a system of language. Most of the time, people or even students say that grammar is a rule, okay? That whenever we talk about these forms and structures, we have to follow a certain rule. But technically, grammar is just a system, and with that system, we form a rule. We do not actually make a rule to make a system. Unlike here, for example, in a country, we tend to make rules to make a system. However, in terms of the language, we first have this system, and then later on we realize, this is how we should be constructing our sentences, our discourse, and that's the way we actually have the rules. Okay. So we have two types of grammar. We have the representational grammar and interpersonal grammar. The first is the representational grammar, which tackles about how, when, and where do things happen. So for example, the sun set at 7:30. So we actually have here the unit at talking about a specific time. Okay, we do not use in, okay, because when we talk about in, it's like inside. Okay, so it's not in. So it actually helps us to represent the reality, how it looks like. The same way, if I say I am in the house, I will not say I am on the house because I am not on the top of the house. Instead, I am inside the house. So that's how it is. Okay, that's representational. The second is interpersonal. The interpersonal, our language use actually differ based on the person we are talking with. For example, a person for maybe a someone who is casually looking for tickets, he or she will say tickets, tickets please, and it's just casual talking. Okay, no hierarchical or no person that is very important like a VIPs. However, if there is suddenly a VIP, this person might change his structure, like saying, can you show me your tickets, can you please give me your tickets, okay, things like that. So our grammar, the grammar usage adjust to to the kind of situation. Okay, so those are the two types of grammar. Now, what are the important terms and concepts do we have to go back with when before we dwell into the teaching of grammar? The first term is the term grammaring. Okay, whenever we talk about grammaring, you just have to remember these three. We have here the form, the meaning, and the use. Okay, so the form, the meaning, and the use, we do not just teach grammar just for the sake of memorizing the rules. For example, you taught your students the way or the proper way of pluralization. So you tell them, you just put s, okay, you just put s to make it plural. So that's how it is. So it's easy, right? Now, you started to give the students the meaning whenever they put an S to that form, like saying dog, it's one. And when we have these dogs, suddenly this, okay, these dogs are here because they are many. So you actually provide a meaning from the S. And then lastly, you have to tell them the use of this form. For example, you have to tell them, okay, use the plural form of the dog or maybe the singular form of the dog. So the child will use it in a sentence. And that is the perfect match. Okay. That's the perfect match in order to make the grammar usage more meaningful. Okay. Next, we also have this term grammaticalization. Grammaticalization is more of the process of making the function of a word different from what it is used to be. So it can either happen in first one, a lexical item or construction changes into one that serves a grammatical function, or number two, develops a new grammatical function. So either of these two. For example, back on the old English time, they have the term William. Okay, William. And then Shakespeare is the one who's using this one. However, as time goes by, grammaticalization happens, and the William, which means to want, suddenly becomes will now in the 21st century era. Okay, so that is an example of grammaticalization. The meaning does not really change, however, the function may change. Okay, so that's how it is. As teachers, we need to know how to do this. Like as a teacher, we need to identify if a certain word changes its meaning, kasi it also affects how we teach. Okay. Next, we also have this error correction and feedback. Of course, we're talking about teaching of grammar. We should know how to correct our students whenever they make errors. But I want to highlight here the differences of this. So whenever we talk about slips or mistakes, it's about they can correct themselves. It seems like they just forget it for a bit, or they forgot to apply it in a sentence, but once they point out the mistake, they know how to correct it. Okay, they already have a knowledge. However, if we talk about error, they don't have the idea yet. So that even though you point out the problem, still they don't know where is the problem. Okay, so that's the thing. Lastly is the attempt. The attempt here, they don't have any rules. They don't know any rules, and it's like an advance. Okay, it's an advance attempt of someone to actually use a form which they haven't learned yet. Okay, an ambitious response into something. For example, ang tinuturo mo pa lang naman is past tense of the verb, and then suddenly a child uses a past progressive form. Kaso mali. That is an attempt. Error kasi still same level. Naturo mo siya, but most probably the students do not know and was not able to acquire that. Kaya siya naging error. Okay? So those are the differences of these three. Each of that, uh, each of that slips, error, and attempt, you need to provide appropriate feedback. Okay, you need to tell them where did they go wrong. Ma'am, when is the best time we have to provide a feedback? Actually, I cannot tell you that because it depends on the situation. There are times that you can immediately correct it, or maybe there are times that you will wait for a matter of hour or after class before you correct it. Or maybe you can even correct it on their writing. Okay, so that's a different way of making your feedback. But truth be told, we should not be tolerating the mistakes, and we have to correct it so that they will not be continuously using those errors or attempts. Okay, let's proceed with the next part, which is the spoken or written grammar. Okay, so how do speaking and writing different? Of course, whenever we talk about grammar and we have to also take note of the context. Are you teaching grammar in a written form or in spoken form? Because these two are very different. Like, for example, spoken form is most of the time informal or conversational. Like when you ask them, okay, you talk to your classmates, most probably they will not be using highfalutin words, or they can make some slips or errors because this is casual. However, when we talk about written form, those kinds of mistakes is not permissible. Okay, we should not allow it because it's already written. They can edit it, they can double check it. But in speaking, it's more of spontaneous. So those mistakes are acceptable. Also, with the structure, most of the time in speaking, we tend to repeat or maybe in order to correct it. However, in written, we do not do repetition, more of explanation, examples, or exercises. The same way with the speed, spoken form is what I've told you, spontaneous, it's continuous, therefore it's faster than written. Written form takes time. Feedback, immediate feedback is necessary. Okay, you can provide it if it's possible, But in written form, they have to wait for the teacher to check it until they get the feedback. The materials, you can use authentic materials, videos, or song for spoken. However, for written form, they have to read. Lastly, how should we use it in the context? For spoken form, we emphasizes grammar in real life situation and context, like how should you approach your teacher in the classroom? How should you talk to your mother? How should you ask permission from your uh, parents? Things like that. Okay. And then for the written form, he actually emphasizes accuracy and correctness in writing. You do not what do they say this? You do not actually give them, oh, how should you write? If that's the case, this is the case. Well, that's possible if we are talking about the genre. However, most probably, whenever we talk about written form, it's very formal, like email writing, academic writing, and other things. Okay? Okay. So these are the pedagogical issues. Okay. Another thing that we have to take note are the pedagogical issues. It's not enough that we know cognitively. We should also know how should we be teaching this. Okay, as what I'm always telling you, it's good that you master your content. However, it's not so good if, okay, you only know it, but you don't know how to transfer it to your students. So, what do we know? You have to take note. What we already know is that the teacher's role already changed. Like from being a fountain of knowledge, we suddenly become a facilitator, right? What more do we need to know? We have to actually improve our way of facilitating because most of the time students are, I maybe teachers are still traditional. They tend to like, how should I say this? They tend to just give out exercises, drills again and again, and it's traditional like with a pen and paper. So what do we need to do? We can research. Okay, research about it. Ask our students for improvement. Okay. Another, we have to claim that some activities are better, and maybe these activities varies from section to section that you are handling. So we have to determine why is that. What's the reason? Again, it's research, and you also provide opportunities for more activities. Do not box yourself, okay, with specific activity kasi you say to yourself, I'm comfortable with this one. I will be using this one throughout my teaching career. No, that's not it because time is changing. So we have to actually change it also. And then, yeah, let's proceed now with the approaches in teaching grammar. So how should we teach grammar, okay, in an actual setting? I will be providing here four. The first one is diagramming. You can teach grammar through diagramming. Look at this one. Diagramming is like the daunting part of teaching grammar, or maybe to English majors. This one is like a very visual approach. So what should we do in order for the learners to know what is English and how do we form sentences? Most of the time, we diagram it. And why do we need to diagram? So that we can identify its categories, syntactical category. Is it a subject, a verb? Is it a noun, an adjective? Is the placement of the words correct? Okay. So this is how we do it. That's the purpose of diagramming. If we as teachers know this one, we can also teach this to our students. Okay? Because it will help them prepare what is the correct structure of a sentence or even a discourse. Next, deductive approach. Deductive approach is also called as a traditional approach wherein teacher first give the concept and then explain it through examples. Okay, ito yung madalas na ginagawa natin because it does not take too much of your time. Kadalasan, this one, you give the rules first. For example, you are going to teach the orders of the adjective. So you first give what are the orders. Ano nga ba yung tamang order? So that's the thing. Tapos, tsaka may magbibigay ng example for each category. Mari, okay, una muna article, una muna number. So you give example. Tapos, Doon mo na ina-explain na ganun siya. Okay, so that's deductive. Para siyang inverted triangle. Okay, malaki the concept and then until you go to specific which are the examples. Unlike inductive which is a triangle. Okay, an inductive you first give a specific situation. Sabi nga nila, ito ang approach ni Holmes. Okay. Enola Holmes. No. Kahit si Sherlock Holmes, okay? He first provide a specific situation and then suddenly nag-form siya ng theory. The same way in teaching, you let your students discover the concept by first providing specific examples. Like, for example, you wanted them to know about the orders of adjectives, but instead of giving them the concept, the appropriate rule, nagbigay ka muna ng example. Tapos, oh, what do you see from the first word? How about the second word? That is inductive approach. Okay, you encourage them to have discovery by observation and analysis. The last approach is the functional notional approach. So for the functional and notional approach, it is like a communicative language teaching method wherein you wanted your students to use these grammar rules to actual life. Okay, you do not just dwell in the classroom, but instead they know how to use it. For example, you wanted your topic not be about modals only, but by the function. So ano yung mga topic mo? Halimbawa, ang topic mo for day 1, lesson about making a request. So you will be teaching the students vocabularies in making a request. The same time, what are the modals we can use in making a request? What are the forms or the structures of a sentences in making a request? Dun siya iikot. Kaya nga siya functional, notional, the function of the language in reality. Paano mo siya magagamit sa pang-araw-araw. Okay? And with that, the learners will practice using these structures in realistic setting. Okay? So maybe they will know how to order, how to ask advice or even give advice. So ganun naka-form. Hindi siya traditional na okay, ang topic natin ngayon ay noun, ang topic ngayon ay modals. No. The topic is about the function of a certain grammar rules or usage. Okay. Okay, so now let's proceed with the latter part. This will be the last part, which are the rules of teaching grammar. So, what conclusions are to be drawn about the teaching of grammar? Ano bang mapapala namin dito? Okay. Whenever we have to do or prepare a teaching demonstration, what should we take note? The first one you have to take note is the rule of context. The rule of context is about contextualizing or localizing whatever your examples are whenever you teach grammar. So you teach grammatical forms in association with meanings. So, for example, the choice of one grammatical form is always determined by the meaning of the speaker or the writer that wishes to convey. So here's a tip. You can actually use a student's name. Okay. So in that case, they are more interested. Okay, they are more interested in uh, or intrigue rather with the sentences. Okay. You also expose them with materials where it could frequently be seen. So for example, your sentence is all about snow, how to deal with snow. Do you think your students can actually use that knowing that we are in a tropical island? No. Therefore, you have to give them form of structures which they can use every day. What are this? Maybe asking permission to a teacher, how to chat a teacher, how to speak with your classmate, and you will not teach them things that are out of the context. For example, you will teach them how a police officer, for example, how a police officer can do this, that. Though okay din siya, it's authentic learning, but you have to prioritize the things that is within the context. Okay? Next, the rule of use. When you teach these grammar rules, are you sure that you're going to use it? Are you sure that it will be imparted to them, and they will be able to apply it whenever they speak or write. So you have to provide opportunities for learners inside your classroom that they will be able to use it. So for example, you teach them pluralization. So why not, whenever you start the class, you motivate the class, or maybe you call for attendance, you give them or you ask them to provide a sentence with plural form. Yung things like that, so that they can use it. So here's a tip. You let them be aware where they can use such concept in grammar. So when can we use the passive form of a sentence? How about the active form? So you actually incorporate it to others. Okay, not just inside the classroom, because that's the thing, future educators, we tend to teach grammar just inside the classroom. That's why when they go outside, which is most of the time 50% of their life, they are outside, okay, they tend to forget about it because they're not using it. Okay, so you ask them, okay, you give them sentences which they can use even outside the classroom. The third part is the rule of economy. Okay. Ito ba ma'am yung pera-pera? Possibly, but economy here is maximizing the use. This means economizing on presentation time in order to provide maximum practice time. With grammar, a little can go a long, long way. So, for example, no, pluralization lang yung topic mo. Will you stop there? No. Economical, okay, being economical, it's just you go beyond. Okay, you go beyond, you maximize the topic. You actually provide them sample sentences or even other concepts that's related with the topic. Okay. Here's a tip. You provide drills and activities using the taught concept of grammar. Huwag mong hahayaan na yung inaral nila kahapon, makakalimutan na nila ngayon. So, paano nila maaalala yun? You consistently provide drills or activities incorporating the previous topics that they have. Okay? That is one tip that we can use, the rule of economy. Okay, another is the rule of relevance. This one is somehow similar with context, okay, the rule of context. Do you teach grammar that the students have problems with? Like, what do they really need to learn? For example, you wanted to teach pluralization, but they already know it. So what's the sense? Okay, what's the sense of teaching these concepts if they actually master it? Why not you focus on what they don't yet know? Okay, you exploit the common ground, what most of the students have difficulty with. So how should we do this? Maybe the diagnostic test is actually a helpful one to let you know where they are not good and where they're good at. So here's a tip. You focus on their need, you avoid repetitive discussion, and avoid too difficult concept. Alam nyo, ito yung common problem, lalo ngayon sa K-12, knowing that we are already in the spiral curriculum. Therefore, the topics of noun, verb, adjective, adverb is repeated from first year to fourth year, or maybe grade 7 to grade 10. Ngayon, ang mga teacher, paulit-ulit lang, puro identification, identification, identification. Hindi na nagle-level up. Pero dapat, it should be identification, then after they identify, usage, application, and actually integrated with other topics. That's the thing about the rule of relevance. Okay? You also maximize it, therefore being economical. Okay? So, it's a thing. Then the rule of nurture. Okay, the learning should not stop inside the classroom. The learning should also be beyond the classroom. Okay, it doesn't necessarily cause learning not in any direct way. Instead of teaching grammar, you provide the right condition for grammar learning. You give them opportunities in your classroom in which they can use, okay, this grammar usage. Okay, ganon siya. So, tip, you can continue to relate a topic with other topics. Ito yung parang relevance na rin. Para nurture. Hindi na nakakalimutan and you actually hindi siya yung parang patsa-patsa lang. Hiwa-hiwala yung pagkakatuto, di ba? You make it holistic. Therefore, nurturing it as a whole. And then we also have here the rule of appropriacy. Okay, the rule of appropriacy is about you give the topic to your students that fits to their levels, to their needs, to their interests, and to their expectations, and maybe their learning styles and what they want. Most of the time, teachers tend to forget that their clients or their customers are students, and they have to provide something in which the student will learn. Okay, so the challenge here is how do we make sure that the students will learn from us? We have to make the topic appropriate. We have to approach that concept if it's too difficult to their level. Okay, maybe it will mean that you will give so much grammar rules, or maybe not so much. It's up to you. You balance things out with fluency and accuracy. Ayun naman lagi yung rule. Fluency and accuracy um, should go well with each other. So either way, it's your responsibility as a teacher to know your grammar inside and out. That's the another problem. If the teacher also have difficulty of the grammar, how can you expect that your students will also master the grammar? So you have to be careful about this one. Okay? So do not teach everything and have an in-depth discussion of it. Focus on what they can use every day. So, baka mamaya nag-focus ka lang dun sa alam na alam mo, pero hindi naman nila nagagamit. Okay? You focus on what they need, what they're more interested in. For example, you teach grade 10 students, so they're coming to senior high, and when they go to senior high, a lot of academic papers will happen. So you have to actually teach them how to write properly with appropriate grammar usage. Okay, that's how it is. Okay, so assessing grammar effectively, how should we teach or how should we evaluate our students? Alam nyo, in comparison with macro skill, madaling i-assess si grammar because we can have it in multiple choice. It's not a skill, it's more of cognitive and mastery of the rules of the language. So it's easier to actually assess. However, we should not stop on just with the pen and paper test. We can actually explore other activities about this one. So here are the methods. You can schedule a weekly mini lesson. So you have your main lesson, but you can actually have a mini lesson which which highlights their needs. Ano ba yung grammar na kailangan nilang balikan? Maybe it's a repetition class or maybe an enrichment class. Pwedeng maglagay ng mini lesson. Have students be responsible for teaching each other about grammar by developing presentations. So you let them recite, you let them talk to each other. Use conference time. You talk to your students personally about where they are having difficulty. Number 4, you hand out a study guide or have the students study grammatical concepts independently. You can give them learning guides, modules, or assignments. Pero you do not make it too hard or difficult. It's just enough to practice or to nurture what they have learned. Okay, so if your strength is more of the lecture, kapag mas gusto mo nagle-lecture, like deductive approach, you choose a common error you've noticed in students' paper that week. Halimbawa, napansin mo, may problema sila lahat sa sa paggamit ng subject-verb agreement. Maybe I'll have this one. Tapos, hindi mo ituturo yung lahat ng rules sa subject-verb agreement. You're just going to focus more on the rule na madalas sila nagkakamali. Mali mo yan sa either or, doon sila madalas nagkamali. So, ayun. You can also bring a photocopies of a paper excerpt. So you give them a copy of a paper, tapos you give them what are the mistakes or errors of that paper. You also offer method of recognizing the error. And kapag naman napansin mo na half of the class is good while others still needs help, you can make it by pair or collaboration so that they can help each other. No longer the days that students are not allowed to talk to their seatmates. Okay, actually, we have to we have to highlight that students need other students to work independently. Okay. So you just have to inform your students early that their sample text, pwede mong gamitin, relevant yun, no? Ginamit mo sa discussion yung mga paper nila. Basta you have to ask permission. You do not identify the writers. Pag nyo sasabihin, sino nagsulat nun. So it will become offending. Okay? So you give a chance to students to fix the error. So you ask a certain student from the class to fix it and you let them correct it after you give them appropriate lecture. Okay, hindi yung hintayin mo lang sila or ikaw mismo mag-identify. Now, if you're not a fan of lecture but you're very good with group work, you can do this. So you can have the students pair up and draw a grammar topic from a hat or maybe any kind of box yan. So every day, you will have a pair in which there will be a 10-minute presentation. And these students will either have a quiz show, an activity about this grammar. Pwede niyong gawin yun, di ba? Ayun yung weekly mini lesson. So just 10 minutes. You're not the only one talking. Your students are also studying the topic. So what to keep in mind? First, you have to give students the resources. What is the appropriate resources? Mamaya kasi mali-mali naman yung resources nila. So, wala din. Baka mali din yung ituturo. Second, you make sure the students understand the grammatical jargon. Okay, baka mamaya may question sila before they report. You have to clarify that. And then there should be a conference. You give feedback with their presentation. Okay? Now, another thing is conference time. What happens during the conference time? So you address the grammar, the mistakes they've made. You focus on one pattern only, hindi yung lahat, i-check mo. Unless it's not necessary, you can just focus on the major errors they made. And then you let them identify or correct their paper. And you actually give them a revision or how to revise their paper, and they will be the one to actually modify their works. First, when you do this, please, kapag magpapagawa kayo ng activity, do not overwhelm your students. You focus only on one or two errors. Wag lahat. Second, why don't you give a mini assignment so that you are very sure that they actually learn what those errors are? Okay, so yeah. Another is individual study. Baka naman gusto mo yung parang learning guide ang approach. So you actually give them ang pinakamahalagang factor dito ay yung materials na gagamitin mo which the students will read. So you have to make sure that these materials are this in-depth, clear, and it gives you enough information to learn about the topic. So you give them the grammar, the materials, they can read it ahead of time, and then you discuss it in the class. You also schedule a test or quizzes over the materials after you did a review. Okay. So what to keep in mind? You have to give students opportunities to see the grammar rules and concepts in context. You have to make sure that they are really seeing what you are seeing. Mamaya, ikaw lang yung nakakakita ng mali at hindi nila nakikita. Diba? So, nonsense yun. You review. Every day, you review and review. And lastly, huwag kayong aalis to sa topic na yun without them having their output. So, you have to make sure that there is an output. Okay? So when you grade those papers, for example, speaking of this output, whenever whenever you grade these papers, first you focus on the pattern or error. Second, you only correct the first instance of an error. Kapag may pagkakamali pa sa latter part, pwedeng wag hayaan mo na silang mag-identify nun. Third, you place a check mark in the margin beside the line where the error occurs. Maybe bilog. You can also discuss patterns during the conferences. Kapag conferences kasi oral na siya. So, pwede mo na doon i-point lahat. Halos. So resist the urge to edit it. We teachers, as much as we wanted to make things easier for us, it's not a good thing for the students. Oo, mas madali kung tayo na lang magtatama, tapos gagayahin na lang ng students. But we should be the one actually pointing the error but not correcting it. You have to let the students analyze it and identify where am I wrong? Where did I do wrong? Okay? So here are the top 10 ways to assess your students. You can have interview, class presentation, role play, close exam, fill in the blank, writing sample, portfolio, multiple choice, or maybe true or false quiz. Okay? So these are just the marking tips that you can have. Okay. So you assess the priorities. Do not mark everything. Ito kanina pa natin sinasabi, just mark one or two errors. Second, mark errors that you think are the most important or serious. Lahat. Okay, wag lahat ipapoint niya. Mamaya, yung saka ano lang, yung S lang niya, mali, pinoint mo pa, di ba? So, wag na masyado. Three, try to send a message the higher order concerns such as critical engagement, development of ideas, organization, yung coherence. Aside from just the grammar, you look as to how they structure the written output. Four, whatever marking strategy, you have to encourage the students that they edit it. It will not be you modifying this. Lastly, you think of minor errors as making up a written accent. Para lang siyang accent. Kung sa spoken, may mga iba't iba tayong accent, isipin nyo na lang yung mga minor errors para din siyang accent. Pero as time goes by, you will also correct it. Okay? And they will learn it from their own. So these are some of the marking tips that you can have. So ito yung mga methods in error making. Either you fix all the errors, this is not good. Okay, if you fix everything, you're like editor sa Jaryo. You mark, but don't correct. And asking students to revise, this is the ideal one. Third, you line edit some errors and you let the students fix the rest. Pwedeng yung umpisa lang, tapos hinayaan mo na sila sa ibang part. Number four, you just identify but don't correct some errors. And then, find errors, similar errors, and mark section of the paper. Sinasabi mo doon na meron pang mga parehas na errors at the latter part. Also, you use minimal marking, hindi yung pinuno mo na ng red mark yung papel. Hindi na nila nabasa. Okay? And last, don't mark any errors. Pwede naman to, wala siyang marka, but you provide a feedback at the end. Kapag feeling mo halos lahat ang daming mali, you just give a message at the end that it's marred with errors and most probably it's hard for you to understand it because of so many errors involved. Okay. So, pwede kayong mag-color coding and highlighting kapag online. Pag naman hard copy siya, pwedeng iba't ibang color yung gamitin. Huwag lang red ball pen. Okay? Pwedeng violet, di ba? Blue, other things. Pwede rin kayo gumamit ng mga correction symbols. Yan. Ito yung ginagamit sa journalism. Whenever they edit a paper, you can actually use this and you give it to the class so that they will know if you use this, mamaya bilog lang. Di naman nila alam yung ibig sabihin. So, you have to make them be aware of the interpretations of those symbols or markings. Okay? So, yeah. That's how we mark errors with this one. And the last part is the lesson plan in grammar. I'm going to provide you this just a simple lesson plan, more of the content, the parts, and the format. Okay, so the first part is objectives. Of course, you have to give objective. Bakit nga ba magtuturo nito? So you can either have this one. You give and receive instructions using modals. differentiate between the modals used. So, ang topic ko dito ay modals. Okay. I actually got it from in the internet and I revised it a bit so that meron tayo ditong cognitive, and then we also have the psychomotor, and at the same time, the affective. Para tatlo. Make clear messages and avoid ambiguity in communication by using the appropriate modals. So, ayan yung parang affective ko. Ano nga bang importance ng making clear messages using modals? So, materials needed. So, dito na tayo nag-start. Topics, objectives, topic, and then materials. Ano-ano ba yung gagamitin mo? Then, you start now with the procedure. So, yung procedure natin, meron niyang three parts. First part is the warm-up activity. Ito, you do not, as much as possible, you give them clues about their topic. You do not ask your students, what do you think is our lesson be about? So, you avoid those kinds of question. Okay, please. Instead, you let them watch. I let them watch a video clip, and in this video clip, they will be able to identify the topics. Like, for example, there are in this video there are red font subtitles, and they have to take note it. They have to write it, and then after the video, they're going to tell me what are those words. And that proceeds to the discussion. That's the point of the warm up. It has to be connected with your discussion. Okay, so you ask the students to listen the board, the modals in English. So pinasulat mo na sa board, di ba? May board work ka na. And then it's like a review because they are already in grade 9. Okay, you don't need to identify it further. More likely, it's more review and then usage. Kaya naman, dito sa activity ko, binagawa is blindfold. Okay, so there's a game. Imagine a discussion with a game. This is what I'm telling you. You should not box yourself with pen and paper. You have to actually be creative and go out of the box. So, may laro, which is a blindfold thing. And this blindfold thing, you have to tell the direction so that they will go to the finish line. That's how it is. Then, the next part is assessment. My assessment is not also traditional. Instead, it is a modal verbs board game. So may dice, tapos gagamitin, they have to create a sentence kung ano man yung matapat doon using a modal. Diba? It's nice, right? Then the second part is writing a letter. Okay, it's writing a letter to Abby, giving advice of something. Like there's a problem, you provide a list of problems, and then they will be giving advices. And having this, they will actually use modals to complete this. And the last part is the generalization. The generalization, so we have warm up, discussion, assessment, and generalization. Sorry, that's 4. Okay. And the generalization is like the wrap up of everything. You summarize what they've learned. And I use this one by asking guide question. You do not just ask your students, so what do you think is the importance of modals? No, you do not ask those kind of questions. Instead, you do an art of questioning. Like this one, I first asked, what are the modals you use to instruct your classmates to win during the blindfold game? And then the second question, how about the modals that you use to send a letter? So I go back with their previous activities and I link it. Then how do these modals differ? You see, there's already a summarization reflecting back with their previous activities. Do you think we can interchange the modals so easily? Why or why not? It's more of critical thinking. Like you will be changing. Now, if they will not be able to answer this, I have this. What if we use the word must to give advice? Will it be appropriate? What about if we use can to instruct someone? Will it not create a confusion to the receiver? So you see, I'm actually giving them the importance of learning the English. And how does the appropriate use of modals maintain clarity in conveying a message? So this one, I am actually highlighting to them the importance of modal to make the message clear and not ambiguous. Okay? And the last part is an assignment. I believe that assignments should not might be too boring because they have a lot of time, or maybe they will do it outside the class. So I asked them to do a comic strip using modals or other function of modals. So I also go beyond. We do not just dwell on the modals that we've used on the lesson, but we also wanted to touch the next topic with the assignment, and that's the purpose of assignment: a kind of review and an offshoot, and at the same time, the linkage to the next topic. And yeah, that's how I end the teaching of grammar. As you see, I rarely use so much of the drill, though it's also important, but the usage of grammar, because it's more fun. They will not even notice that we are actually learning the language because they're having fun about it. So yeah, that's how I will wrap things up. According to David Crystal, grammar is the pulse of language. It beats along with every word, creating the rhythm of communication. That's why I will give you my takeaway with this one. The teaching of grammar should never be too daunting that students are too afraid to take it. You have to add a mixture of fun and natural learning, and everything will blend well to their taste. So that's Jimenez 2023. So I hope that you're able to get a review regarding this. So that's it, and thank you.